Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Friday morning, broadcasting live from Lee Hall, Cherry Farm. It's cold. We're back from Atlanta. Got in last night. A lot going on in the sports world, and the information flow never stops. My assistant Mildred, next to me in the truck driving back, was deciphering all the information. Probably the takeaways of the day are that story from the NCAA. We'll get into that about tiers for NIL. You know, all these people that said we got to get the government involved to fix NIL. I mean, are you that stupid? I mean, they could screw up a 2-car funeral. They can print money and they're still broke. That ought to tell you right there the competence level that we're dealing with the federal government. So my suggestion to you is let the damn free market work it out like we always do. Capitalism, not that other alternative of doom and gloom, despair, excessive misery. Remember hee-haw? Okay. All right, got a great show in store for you today. Big Ben Troupe grew up in the mean streets of Swainsboro, Georgia, dreamed from birth of being a Swainsboro Tiger. The only guy I know who had 4 other kids within a 2-block radius that all grew up and played SEC football. And a lot of them in the NFL, like Ben. We'll talk with Ben Troupe. Also, second segment, we'll be joined by Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9, The Drive down in the bold new city, Jackson, Mississippi. Great stuff from him, always down on the banks of the Pearl River, Madison, Ridgeland, beautiful areas down there. Hour number 2, man. Ken Capps, part of the Texas duo, out today with flu-like symptoms last night. He's trying to recover. He'll be out today, but Bo Carter, National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America, working on a book about the Philadelphia Phillies. This guy is absolutely just a renaissance man. Bo Carter, we love having him on hour number 2. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Check him out. Catch them Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis. And, of course, Super Talk. And this is how you say it if you're from the South. So the rest of the country needs to listen to what I'm saying. It's not Mississippi. It's Mississippi. Super Talk Mississippi. That's Monday night, 6 to 7, Rebel Yell Hotline. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring Ben Troupe in. And let me say this about our sponsors. You know, we just added last week my friend Justin Ross. I've known quite a long time, fellow parishioner, St. Louis Catholic Church in Memphis. Played his college football at Rhodes College. He's a successful attorney. Also opened up now the first of 2 Vitamin Shop locations, 5338 Goodman Road, South Haven, Mississippi. Their location, they're on Goodman Road. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that allows everybody to go to church and then get to work. Man, they've got a full staff of people to help you get the right vitamins, supplements, probiotics. They know what they're doing. Ben, I guarantee you, when you invest in yourself, in your body, like you did 5 years in the NFL, college, high school before that, you take care of yourself. Get to the Vitamin Shop, okay? Ben, a lot of stuff happened. Like I said, we're back from Atlanta. Got in last night about 9. And I'm going to throw some stuff out there that you and I are going to attack here in the first section, okay? Number 1, Ryan Day's issues at Ohio State, I think, are an indictment on the Big Ten. By that, I mean he's 56-7 as a head coach there in 5 years. He coached those 3 games in the first of the 2018 season. Remember when Urban Meyer was held out, put in timeout for a while? And he's 39-3 or something like that in the Big Ten. The only losses he has are to Michigan. I think what that is saying is, really, is the rest of the Big Ten just no good? What are your takeaways that he's under pressure and that you've got 11 or 12 guys in the portal, including the quarterback from St. Joseph's Catholic School, another great Catholic school in Philadelphia, is leaving? What's going on up there?
I think it's fair, but it's unfair. It's fair because he is the head coach of Ohio State, one of the premier football programs in the country.
Yeah.
But it's unfair when you look at the fact that this is a recent bias now because Michigan has been beating Ohio State recently. This is not something that has happened, traditionally. But it's what we talked about last week. Rob, if you Kirby Smart, you get judged by what goes on against Alabama. I don't care what you've done. You got to update your resume. I think that Harbaugh is getting like a 5-year, $55 million extension because when you beat Ohio State, it means something. Yeah. I mean, I got a nephew. He's a junior high school, just finished up his junior season. I asked him what school he want to go to. He said, I want to go to Ohio State. You know what I told him? Everybody does. Yeah. Everybody that plays football wants to go. But it is an indictment on the Big Ten because what happened in the Big Ten when it comes to Ohio State is what just happened with Florida State and ACC. When it's very, very top heavy, meaning one or two teams, and you go undefeated, because Clemson is not good as of late, that kept Florida State out. So the thing about Michigan knows, hey man, barometer is over there in Columbus. We got to beat them to one, stay nationally relevant, and two, compete for national championships. Only problem is, everybody talking about Penn State. Penn State can't beat Michigan. Penn State can't beat Ohio State. People talk about Michigan State. They had a run, 5 or 10 years ago. So it is.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to stop you. You made an absolutely brilliant point. Okay, the fact that if everybody's pulling against the other teams in their conference. Again, look what happened to Florida State because Clemson's down now. Florida State, let's be honest, which we have to be, full disclosure, they were penalized. Brilliant point, Big Ben. Keep going.
No, I'm saying, think about this, Rob. Every conference is top heavy. Like every conference is top heavy. Texas still got beat by Oklahoma this year, right? They still got beat by them in the Red River, but they beat Alabama. So when you talk about resume boosters, I think the thing about a team like Ohio State has national championship aspirations, and the country knows that. The country knows that they are in a part of the country that people can say, while the national championship comes from a certain part of the country, Ohio State is good enough to do it because we've seen them do it. But because they beat Alabama, they had Ezekiel Elliott and Michael Thomas and Cordell Jones. But I think the thing about the Big Ten is the biggest indictment of the Big Ten is it's always going to be two schools. It's Ohio State, Michigan. And when it comes to Florida State, what Florida State needed, they needed Clemson to be good. They needed Miami to be good. They needed North Carolina to be good. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. So I think when you talk about these conferences and what hurts them is their bottom feeders are bottom feeders. Like people don't even know. You know how many people don't even know that Maryland's in the Big Ten? They don't even know that. Maryland is in the Big Ten. But because it's all about when you do it and who you do it against. That's college football. When did you do it? Oh, we beat Alabama. So how did you do it? Oh, at Alabama when it comes to Texas, right? And I'm gonna say this too. Texas got in because Alabama won the SEC. I do not think people can get mad at me if Georgia wins and Alabama's out. I don't know if Texas gets in. Florida State might get in. So I think when it comes to some certain conferences, we be saying this. Hey man, why don't people watch the Big Ten? Because it's not good programming. I don't want to see Iowa State. I don't want to see certain. I watch. There's a reason why Michigan Ohio State's last game of the year. There's a reason why it's like that. So I think Coach Ryan Day gets unfair treatment sometimes, but it comes with it. I always say this: it's not where you coach, it's who you replace. Yeah. If you replace Urban Meyer, and that's what they expect, right? So I just think that when you talk about a school like Ohio State, everybody wants the head coach position. You don't want the pressure, man, because the pressure is, hey, man, if you can't beat Michigan, what are you here for? Think about this. One loss the last 3 seasons. Yeah. So, but at the same time, Rob, it's like this. People go, hey, man, why do people watch the Iron Bowl? Because Alabama was a favorite and they should have lost to Auburn. But see what happens? See what happens? So, but that's why we watch, though, right? That's why we watch college football, because it's about as unpredictable as it gets. And I do, listen, being a Florida guy, I mean, I still feel bad for them Florida State Seminoles only because, listen, all I did is beat everybody you put on the schedule for me, but because my starting quarterback is out, we're not gonna make it in. But It's listen, if you are Jason Campbell, Carlos Rogers, Ronnie Browne, and Cadillac Williams, you know what this is like. You went undefeated in 2004 and didn't get to play for the national championship, and you won the SEC. So,
13 and up.
Again, but deja vu has struck again in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, great points, and I think you really hit on something. If Georgia beats Alabama, and my son Wilson and I, man, we're having a good year on our picks. I had Alabama to win 31-15. That was my pick. Billy Roberts and I went down to Mercedes-Benz Stadium Saturday. And by the way, just got to say, goodbye, ode to the ticket scalpers, man. Third and fourth generation ticket scalpers are now being disenfranchised with these damn electronic tickets. But there were still people down there trying to sell paper tickets. It was unbelievable. I mean, I was just watching in awe. But man, it was $300, $400. You could not get anything cheaper than that. Okay, so let me throw something at you. You're right. Texas got in because of the credibility they gained by beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa September 9th. And the reaction, I remember being down in Orange Beach watching that game, the reaction of people, the Alabama fans and the media, the dynasty's done. How many times have we heard that? Okay, we're going to move on, but let me get some comments here. Kelly Leak, it's rigged. Kelly Leak agreeing with you. Texas does not get in. If Georgia wins, it's rigged. Great point, Ben. Let's go to the second thing I want to talk about. By the way, Ryan Day is from New Hampshire. So is Dan Mullen. So is Chip Kelly. So is George O'Leary, where he learned to do that resume work, Think about that. Okay. Now, second thing I want to get into, the NCAA's announcement means what? Yesterday on the way back, I get a text from some of my listeners to the show down in Fort Lauderdale and Deerfield Beach, Florida. You know where that is. Beautiful part of the state. Of course, what part of Florida is not if it's close to the beach? The NCAA proposal for paying athletes. It creates new subdivision for high revenue schools. Schools are required to pay each athlete a minimum of $30,000. All Title IX rules must apply. No changes to conference championships. John Hartwell was on yesterday, AD at ULM. We were talking. He said this a couple of months ago. 97.3% of all NIL money is going to male athletes. But he broke it down a step further. He's a Citadel graduate, has a CPA, was in private accounting for years before he got to be an athletic director. Said, if you took away just the football money, then it's a lot different. But the football money, it's almost all football. It's some basketball. But what do you think about that to where every athlete gets a minimum of $30,000? Ben, if I'd have known you, let's say I'm from Swainsboro. Okay, you moved to Augusta in high school. So you didn't live in Swainsboro. And how far is Augusta from Swainsboro? Like to your house?
About an hour north.
Okay, so if I knew you and let's say we went to church together, I just knew, and you were getting that kind of money and you said, Rob, I know you're a financial advisor. What should I do? And I'm not trying to be Milburn Drysdale, who's tighter than a clam with lockjaw, but I just said, Ben, you're getting that $30,000, put $25,000 of it in the bank. Okay. And let's invest that for the long term. That's my only gripe. I'm not trying to say I don't want student athletes, because you cannot in America, capitalism, not Marxism or socialism, capitalism. That's all I'm saying. Just like Allen Iverson. Who was the guy? I would love to get him on the show if you know him.
Yeah.
Who put that deal together that everybody said Allen Iverson's broke. Oh, don't forget, one of his friends or advisors put a balloon payment when he turns 50 years old. He gets $50 million. He forgot he had that $50 million coming. Happy birthday, son.
What I say about the announcement is this, is what I always say. It's easy to say that, right? It's easy to say we're going to give everybody $30,000. Well, everybody has to be everybody. It can't be when you get to talking about these big money schools like Texas A&M, Florida. Okay, but they're going to get the creme de la creme no matter what. They're going to get stuff they don't even know exists. What I don't like about it is you put this type of stuff out there, and all these young men and women here is we're going to get $30,000. No, you're not.
Yeah.
See, because you got to put it in a trust, which means you're going to have to get schools putting the money in a trust that everybody gets divvied out to everybody. So now Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Florida State, Miami, Texas, Alabama, Auburn, they got to put it in a trust for those schools not named Alabama and Auburn. Because when you say everybody, you mean everybody in college football? Because the thing about it is, Rob, most people, not all, most people are not financially literate. They don't know the first thing about money. Because when we get to saying, if somebody say, well, Rob came and told me I need to invest $25,000. You know what my mama gonna say? Well, what is investing? See, the problem is, capitalism is one of those, it's a really, really catchy word, right? But we don't know what it fully means. Capitalism to me is longevity. Man, I want to be a part of, I want this money to do for me, and I wanted to do for me, for the little me's that's gonna come behind me and their little me's. But which means I'm gonna sacrifice now for the later. And I might not get the benefit of my hard work, but I got children. I'm gonna have children. And I think the thing about it is, Rob, is deferred gratification, delayed gratification. I'm gonna say, wait a minute, man, you mean to tell me I'm not gonna do what young men do? No, because when I was in the NFL, all the money you spend at the end of the day, it's a car, it's a house, it's clothes, it's shoes, it's stuff that people can see. But when you see people with real money, they don't look like it. Dude, no. He got on a $5 t-shirt. He got on some $6, $20 jeans. and didn't want to pay the $20 because they understand, look, man, a person with money always say, I can get it for cheaper. I don't care what y'all say, I can get it for cheaper. and I feel good about getting it for what I wanted it for. And you know that sounds like my daddy. My mama can't stand taking my daddy places because my daddy goes, Cheryl, I think I can get it for cheaper. Well, John, the price, I don't keep, listen, that's the price they put on it. So I do think now, being older and understanding that when I have my financial people and they telling me, Ben, we got a billionaire that we represent. So you don't make enough money for us to steal from you. Because that's all you're thinking. Are they going to take my money? No. We're not going to take, we don't steal from the billionaire, and we could, and he wouldn't even know it. They're trying to let me know you want to be comfortable forever, not just for a period of time of your life. You want to be comfortable for the long haul. That way, you sitting around at Thanksgiving dinner, Thanksgiving and Christmas now, we're talking about, hey man, appreciate that investment advice, appreciate that, appreciate that IRA information. Because what happens is when people say, what should when I leave to go to Florida in 2000 and even though I get drafted, what am I coming back home with? My conversation should be different. I should be talking to my parents about, like, Mama, Daddy, have anybody ever told y'all about this? Have anybody ever told y'all that there are certain people out there that get listen, there are people that get life insurance for life insurance. There are other people that get life insurance to borrow money off of it, right? They got a cash. So it's stuff like that to be able to say $30,000 did that. Yep, because the $30,000 opened up a world. With Rob Browne and associates that I didn't know existed, and now I get to say, hey man, that $30,000 that I made for my 4 years in Florida, now the NFL looks different because I understand money now. Because it's all about money. People go, I play for the love of the game. No, you do not. You play because you get paid to play.
Yeah. Let me throw something at you. You are on a roll. You always are, though. Bill Courtney, had him on the show one time about 3 years ago. He is a self-made guy. He owns a lumber yard in North Memphis, pretty rough neighborhood called Manassas then. And, he took over. He just volunteered to coach the high school football team there. He did it for 7 years. They did a documentary on him and the team called Undefeated. It won all kind of awards. Have you seen it?
I have seen it.
Okay. And so Bill lives in Memphis, and Bill Courtney came over and he talked about financial literacy. He was a Sigma Nu at Ole Miss. He's a good guy. And man, he just tells things and puts things in a way. But he said, remember Omar on the team? He said, Omar, one time, I said, Omar, how much you think your grandmama's house cost? And he goes, $5,000. He goes, I take him to my house, and he has a nice house. He's earned it. He's worked his ass off. He goes, how much do you think my house is worth? He goes, $10,000. That's why financial literacy is so important. And this is the thing that I see in my practice. That one time my biggest clients, it was a married, husband and wife, came up. They used to ride their bicycle to see me. They had a tandem bike, and they would dress, they had a lot of money. And one time, Linda up at the front said, "Rob, I think there's 2 homeless people here to see you." And I said, "Oh, I'll be right there." I knew who it was. And it was unbelievable, but you're so right about that. The wealthy people driving the old station wagon worth $100 million because they've been broke. But my dad's generation, my dad's born in 1928. He's watching right now, old man Browne. Hello, say hi, Bob. Hi, Grandma.
How you doing, Bob? How you doing, sir?
He will tell you $10 for lunch, $20. He's like, and he's run some very successful, architecture practices, and he's done work all over the world. But that generation, he remembers the Depression, having to live with his grandparents for 6 months just to keep everything stable. But they kept fighting. They're good Irish. They ain't gonna quit. But that's financial literacy, and what you just said. So I'm talking to a person about NIL this week in Atlanta, an SEC school, and he said, "Rob, let me just tell you something. You have to understand, a lot of these kids, they don't know anyone who ever went to college." He said, "You went to private schools, Rob. You have to understand." My son Wilson and Hallie and Max, they went from private schools to public schools to White Station, great school in Memphis. There were kids in there in the optional program that were, 5.0s on steroids. And there were kids from the roughest neighborhood in town. And man, my kids can talk to anybody. They said, "Dad, you think these kids are coming there and they're getting, a free lunch?" He goes, "A lot of them are embarrassed. They won't eat it because financial literacy is the number one thing we need to be doing." And so this NIL deal said, each person, when you are a donor, an investor in NIL, you're going to have 5 or 6 student athletes you're responsible for. You're not going to create some fake mock interview room. You're going to take them on a real interview. You're going to teach them how to dress. You're going to give them honest feedback. Say why you do this, why you do it. You're not going to kiss their ass and just coddle them. Okay? You're going to help them. That's what we need to be doing. We don't need the government, again, could screw up a 2-car funeral. Okay. All they'll do is print more money to cover their mistakes. You and I can't print money to cover our mistakes. Mm-hmm. Capitalism means some people win, some people lose, but you can try again and again. You go bankrupt. Ben Franklin put the bankruptcy laws into our, Constitution, into our governmental body of work to provide people with opportunities for another chance. Eddie Robinson III, I love him. I've had him on the show a couple of times, lives over in Atlanta. I used to watch his dad. Remember Eddie Robinson show Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock in Memphis. He used to say, "Football teaches the lessons of life. You get knocked down, you get back up. You get knocked down, you get back up. But when you quit getting back up and you quit swinging and fighting, young man, you are done. And I don't want no part of that." He was a smart man. You know that. And I know that. But financial literacy, if we want to do something for student athletes, we'll teach them how to read a ledger sheet, debits and credits and balances, how to balance a checkbook. Everything's electronic now. Mm-hmm. Get an old paper checkbook that lays out on the table. All my wealthy friends, that's how they do it. I guarantee you do that, man. You've made money. I don't see you as someone who's driving around in a Lamborghini.
Oh no, no.
I see you as a truck driver.
Thank God I'm too big and too tall for those cars. But I think the best. Listen, Justin Tuck is the greatest story. Don't talk. Justin Tuck is from Alabama.
From Coosa, Alabama? Do you know him?
I might have played against him. I never met. But
he went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, spent 1-2 Super Bowls with the Giants. He works for Goldman Sachs now.
Yeah.
So when people, because the thing about it is when people say, "Hey man, how how do I learn about this capitalism? I said, number one, before you get some money, man, be around the people that do. Like, be around them and just listen. It's like this. When you got the four people, the whole four people rule. You got people to talk about people. You got people to talk about things. You got people to talk about ideas. You got people to talk about execution of ideas. The people with the money, they're talking about execution of ideas. Like, they don't sit around and say, I don't care about what this person's doing. Don't give me the. If I cannot execute the idea, what are we doing? So these think tanks and all that, because I usually think that freedom is when I can control my 24 hours. No, freedom is when you are free financially. If you are financially free, you free.
Yeah.
Because now my money isn't dictated or predicated on someone else. Look, I don't got to have financial freedom is different for everybody. You sit down with a financial person, they're gonna say, what is financial freedom to you? You give them a number, they look at your money and say, this is what it's gonna take. Because people, it's gonna come a time that we're not going to be able to do two things. Either you can't work anymore or you don't want to work anymore. How does your life look? Because because the whole thing about it is, listen, we love places like Walmart and Target, but when you walking in and you see that, 75-year-old man or woman greeting you at the door, that's not a good thing for them. They're living off that. They could be the sweetest, nicest people. That is a part of the and don't think these people didn't have a plan. So a lot of people lost their retirement. They lost. These different things. So I just 401ks or whatever. It's about when I learned about IRAs, Rob, when I learned about, understanding how you can invest in yourself, people saying, look, if I'm 20 years old and I've had an IRA since I was 18 years old, when I bought my first house at 30, I took my own money. The bank is like, what you mean you don't need us? I don't need y'all. But because I got capital, now I can negotiate terms. It's things like that I think that people need to have opportunities to have access to.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a committee, and you know what I wouldn't do? I wouldn't have a big boardroom with a big table and nice comfortable chairs with drinks and hors d'oeuvres. I do like they do in the Ranger Battalion out at Fort Benning. And hats off to today, my friend Liz Nicky's son, Braden Habasta, will graduate from Ranger School at Fort Benning, Georgia. They got the go. And this kid, he comes over. He's going to come duck hunting with us when he's going to get off a couple of weeks, I think, before they're going to give him 62 straight days of 1 meal a day, 3 hours of sleep, and the 4 phases. And he's going to graduate today. So hats off and congratulations to Braden Habasta. He will get that black and gold tab, and that will open a lot of doors. But he will back it up with credibility. But let me say this is really cool. 40% of portal entries are either moving down to Division II or no longer playing football. Ben, when I was at all, my friends at the end of the year would go in on the team and the position coaches would meet with them, and then Coach Dye would talk to them. And they weren't ugly. They weren't mean. They would say, Ben, we only go 3 deep on the depth chart, and you're about 5th. You're a good young man. You've got a year to go to get your degree in finance. I want you to be a part of this program or whatever, but, and they may even keep you on scholarship, but you're not going to be on the roster. There's just now they go into the portal, and it's like athletic purgatory. We got just about 3 minutes. We're going to have to take a break in a minute, and then Jake Wimberly is going to be on from down in Jackson. But your thoughts about that? Is this accurate? Is the portal just starting to adjust to what we've always had anyway? Yes or no?
Yes. And the thing is, this 40% of the portal entries are either moving down to D2 or no longer playing football. You know how many players of D1 that were supposed to go D2? See, all this is a great equalizer. A coach ain't got no reason to lie to you, especially when I'm finna tell you you're not. If they say, hey, we go 3 deep, you're number 5. It didn't click. We only go 3 deep. And when we don't go 3 deep. We carry 3. The third one is not going to play. And then they're telling you, look, we need to stop thinking that D2 ain't still big time football. That's the biggest mistake. Yeah. If I play football after high school, I won.
Yes.
Because when people get to thinking, hey, being how many people on an Auburn roster shouldn't be at Auburn? 40% of them. Doesn't mean they're not good people, right? But think about that.
Yeah.
They're trying to, you got to survive coaching, you got to survive coaching, you got to survive the environment, you got to survive recruiting.
Yeah.
That's what so what the portal is a microcosm of the portal is saying, man, I can see what's coming.
Yeah.
What? they got the number one linebacker. I was the number one linebacker. Yep. Because they're trying to get you every year. So I'm happy for these D2 schools and these D1 AA schools and NAIA schools that's getting these players, and stop thinking that, hey man, my nephew, he's up there in Topeka, Kansas, up there in Washburn. He says we have SEC guys coming here. I go, those guys played in the SEC. They weren't SEC guys. It took going to the SEC to realize this ain't for me. I know.
Yeah.
So let me go up here. So I respect every college athlete. I don't care where you play at.
Yeah, I do too. No, I do too. I'm trying to stay on the schedule, but I totally agree with that about the guys that come in. When Brian Harsin was fired at Auburn, I know someone that was looking at the roster and he said, yeah, about 40% of those guys, he said, they don't need to be here. I mean, they're good kids, but if you play college sports, I don't care if it's lacrosse, football, baseball, you're a badass because you've learned how to work. And as Coach Dye used to say, you bring a young man up here 4 or 5 years in our program, in our system, you're going to learn how to work. And that'll help you the rest of your life. And I want them to get their degree. They're going to get it. I'm going to make sure that that's our job. It's like that time he met Frankie Sanders' mother down in Deerfield Beach, Florida, or Dillard High School in Fort Lauderdale. Remember Frankie Sanders, the catch against your number one Gators? I mean, not trying to, but Coach Dye told a story. I never heard this before. He said, he goes, my dad did a painting. You can see it in the background. That one, it's actually being covered up right now of the catch. But he said, this is back in high school. Coach Dye was down there at Dillard. And he goes, I met Frankie Sanders' mother, and she was wearing a wig. She was going through cancer treatment. She said, Coach Dye, she goes, you got to promise me something. She goes, I send my son up there. You better take care of him and turn him into a man because I'm not going to be here to see him play. And she didn't live much longer. I mean, that's the kind of responsibility you have as a coach. You know what I'm talking about. So these are special people, and they come from special families. And don't ever forget that. I mean, I love what you're saying. Ben, hang with us. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. Check out this one from, as Nigel, our British friend, says, the Vitamin Shop.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Curve everything else. Win, 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 win. These ops ain't lit. Mommy. Win, 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 win.
All right, Rob Browne back here. Jake Wimberly down in Jackson. Catch him every afternoon, 3 to 6, ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive. Tell Wes to listen to Jake Wimberly, MJ, down there in the bold new city. That's Big Ben Troupe up there in the top part. And had a really cool conversation. Jake, in this first 30-minute segment, talked a lot about college football. You know, Ryan Day's problems are really an indictment on the Big Ten. It's the Big Two. Also about this new rule, pay every athlete $30,000. And Again, the transfer portal, 40% of the kids going in there, Jake, are going down to D2 or no longer playing football. Ben calls it the great equalizer. We've got a civil engineer by trade, a proud Mississippi State graduate. There's movement in the aisles here at Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. Let's hand the ball off, wrap it in maroon and white with Jake Wimberly. Jake, you there?
Guys, how in the world are you? It's a crazy time to be alive in college football. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I thought we froze there for a second. Another part of the web, But anyway, yeah, a lot going on. Ben, or Jake. Jake, you there? Yeah, he may have frozen up. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, but Ben, this conversation, and hopefully Jake's not having technical issues, but I think that.
There we go.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, here we are. We got you back. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob. Tee that back up. I know you guys are talking about the transfer portal, about this new, what I call utopian proposal from the NCAA, which is not going to work. I do agree with Ben. It's the great equalizer. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Looking at your stat on your screen, 40% of the portal entries are either moving down to D2 or no longer playing football. That's the big elephant in the room nobody's talking about.
Yeah. And see, October 15th, 2018, Jake, that's when the portal became the law of the land. And you and I and Ben, we've been around a while. Guys have always transferred. Here's the real stat that'll blow your mind. I don't think it'll blow your mind, but even 10 years ago, I read a stat, 42% of quarterbacks that sign in college, Division I, end up finishing their career at a different school. So, nothing's really changed. It's been a jump ball, if you really are honest, Jake.
No, it has. You go all the way back into, even just prior to when the portal became official in 2021. You had guys moving around. Remember, Ole Miss had a transfer quarterback, back in the early 2000s. Mississippi State's had transfer quarterbacks. We've seen this happen. This isn't new. It's just now that it's out in the open and it's legal, it's on steroids, so to speak. But I think for me, at least, and I'm all for players getting paid. I always have been. I think that's a beautiful thing to get paid to play football or play basketball. You're bringing, inadvertently a ton of money into the universities that you play for. But I think, again, the travesty is the 40% that doesn't. We don't ever talk about that. And, I look at that be it On3 or wherever you get your portal information from, and it always talks about the guys that did not find a home. And you always wonder, what happens to those guys? What advice are they getting? But, and I know Ben can speak more of this than I can, but talking to coaches, sometimes it's not all the players either. It's coaches pushing kids into the portal or saying, hey, you're not going to play here. So it's a heck of a deal to kind of get your arms and your head around.
Yeah. Ben.
Yeah, and the thing about it is too, the one thing I always tell these players whenever I get a chance to talk to them, I say, give me all 128 starting quarterbacks in FBS. What? It's 128 of them. First they go, it's that many? Yep. And you only know 2 or 3, right? And you play against them. And to me, that's the thing, right? When people say Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow. They transfers. All 3 of them. And that was the number 1 overall pick. So, but that's the problem. Everybody think I'm going to beat Joe Burrow. No, you're not. I'm going to beat Kyler. I'm going to beat Baker. No, college football needs to be respected for this reason. Man, it is the hardest 11 players to ever get out there. It's hard because 85 guys. Some guys, it blows your mind how they don't get out there. But when they hit the portal is reality. Division I football is perception because, hey man, I'm coming from Auburn, but when I get in the portal, I'm not getting the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Floridas. I'm getting Alabama A&M. I'm getting FCS. And people go, I thought I was better than that. I said, no, I thought you said you wanted to play. I do.
Yeah.
So you didn't play up there. So you didn't play where you came from. That's why you left. And now, quote, the girl that likes you, you don't like her. You kept going for the girl that's beautiful. Well, of course, the beautiful girl in the room, everybody can see her. Only, the quarterback is going to walk up to her. Do you think these quarterbacks are handsome? No, they're starting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I'm starting quarterback at Alabama. Listen, everybody wanted to be what was his name? AJ McCann, not because he was at Alabama, because Musburger put the camera on his girl like, Miss Alabama. Oh, I want to go there for that.
Yeah.
And to this day, AJ McCann could care less if he's handsome or not. He's winning natties and he's getting coached under Saban. The problem is, what about the 4 guys that was under him? Brock Vandegrift right there at Georgia, big time 5-star, never played at Georgia, in the portal, going to Kentucky. And I think it's the reality of the situation like this. Except the fact that you are still wanted. Because some of those guys, they're not coming out. Not because they're not good enough. They're going to say, hey, man, unless you play a premium position, that being quarterback, defensive end, left tackle, corner, either you're going to accept who's trying to come, those same guys that came into your living room. Listen, Hugh Freeze just left. Nick Saban just left. Here comes, the Citadel. Coach, sorry, Coach, my son going here. Okay, well, your son ain't played for 3 years. So do they want to? I think it's not a harsh reality. It's a reality. Every kid that can throw a football think they're going to be Tom Brady. It's not happening because you got the exceptions, you got the rule. The exceptions are the ones who get drafted. We are the exception like nobody's business. The rule is the other 99% that's in college athletics that either you want to play or you don't, because I'm sorry, I got into a debate. I said the greatest running back ever played college football in the state of Georgia is not Herschel Walker. It is, I said, no, that's Adrian Peterson. Not the one that went to Oklahoma, the one that went to Georgia Southern. If you think I'm lying, check his stats. And because he didn't go to the University of Georgia, he went to Georgia Southern. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He had a speech impediment. That's why he went to Georgia Southern. His brother Mike went to Florida. Obviously, they from Gainesville. And I just think that when I'm talking to these players now, I'm just telling them, do you want to play football? Because coming out of high school, I want to get a scholarship. And Nick Saban came and took a picture with y'all star running back. Well, that guy never played. I mean, Kamara went to Alabama. He ended up at Tennessee. So just because you start one way and go to another way, I'm just happy for the players that end up, because some of the best situations you could be in is when you go to it's not, I don't like it. It's a lower level of football. It's a different level. It's not. It's a different,
It's
not, FBS and Division II. That's not listen, the greatest receiver ever played football ever went to Mississippi Valley State.
And you know where he was from? Wasn't he from Starkville, Jake?
Town called Crawford, right south of Starkville, right outside the city limits. Little bitty community.
Yeah, Jake, I want you to talk about the state of Mississippi. You're down in Rankin. I mean, you know that state better than about anybody. High school football down there. I mean, these towns like Flora and McGee. I mean, there's 17 junior colleges in Mississippi, but there's a lot of small schools that, I mean, per capita, Jake, Mississippi has produced more guys and put them in the NFL than any state in America. That's pretty cool stat, isn't it?
It is. It is. And there's a lot of great high school football. Look, we just went through 2 weeks. Our 2.5 weeks of championships, and I'm blessed to be able to do that. First for the MAIS, which is the private school sector in the state of Mississippi, and then the MHSA. We just were in Oxford at Ole Miss last week for the state championships for the public side. And when you look at it, at the state of Mississippi, I mean, it is top to bottom classification. You can go from Starkville to Oxford, down into central Mississippi, over to Meridian, down into the Pine Belt, down on the Gulf Coast. There are pockets and pockets and pockets of football players in this state. Yeah.
Jake, let's talk about Jeff Lebby. I was on your show a couple of days ago. Love being on there with you on the afternoon drive, ESPN 105.9 down in Jackson. I like Jeff Lebby. I know I saw what he did with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Then he went to Oklahoma. He coached Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel is going to Oregon already. Did he try to get him? What I was told, what's Dylan Gabriel, 5'10"? Is he exercising free agency, Jake, basically? Because he probably won't be drafted to the NFL. But then again, Kyler Murray is maybe 5'8". Because I know someone who stood next to him in line at a restaurant in Atlanta. He said, Rob, he's shorter than I am and hell of a player. But let's talk about Lebby at Mississippi State and who the quarterback's going to be. I'm curious.
Well, first off, I mean, I like the hire. Like me and you were talking the other day. I mean, I felt like Mississippi State had to find somebody that understood, or at least wants to understand the collective side and the NIL. Jeff Lebby got off the plane in Starkville with a collective Mississippi State collective shirt. So that's kind of a sign of, hey, we're here to raise money. We're here to fundraise. We need your help. That checks the box. 2, somebody that can recruit. He has shown that he can do that and understands that. And then 3, somebody that can play offensive football sideline to sideline and outside the hashes, so to speak. And he does that. So I think he checks the boxes for what Mississippi State needs. As far as the quarterback is concerned, I mean, you hear a lot of names. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel was one. There's been some others. But the one thing Jeff Lebby said is he said, hey, look, our quarterback is in that portal. He did say that right out the gate. So, who is that quarterback? It's really your guess is as good as mine. I mean, if you look at sites like On3, JD PicKell, I mean, he's kind of, I guess you could say, starring, so to speak, the quarterback down at Miami to Mississippi State, but then you see DJ Uiagalelei. So, I mean, I don't know who it's going to be, but I know the starting quarterback for Mississippi State in 2024 is in that portal.
Ben, did you hear what he just said? DJ went from Concordia, California to Clemson, 5-star, then to Oregon State in Corvallis. By the way, that's where they filmed Friday the 13th, the Freddy Krueger and the Jason movies. And between Eugene and Corvallis, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. That ought to tell you what we're dealing with out there. But Ben, elaborate.
I mean, listen, I agree with Jake. I mean,
I told that to Butch Thompson.
Think about
he was going out there last year for the Super Regional. He started laughing his ass off because Rob,
you didn't think of yourself,
only
you
you
ain't got
can
no
come up
leverage.
with that.
You got leverage. Like,
I got it on mute.
The greatest leverage you got is we in the SEC. We in the SEC West, but we in the SEC. So I do think that Coach Lebby going to look at some of these coaches. This is what he's going to say. Coach Lebby's going to say, y'all boys afraid to compete? Y'all scared of Alabama? Are you scared of Ole Miss? What, you scared of Auburn? No, because when you talk about Mississippi State quarterbacks, they've had some pretty good ones. What is that bum name that played for Dallas? What's his name? Dak? He was pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? What is that other bum name? What's the other bum name? Nick Fitzgerald. I think he has the most rushing yards for a quarterback in the SEC history, right? And
Richmond Hill, south of Savannah, wasn't he?
They got coached under Dan Mullen. What's his name? Tim Tebow. So you got coaches. The difference in Mississippi State is this. The Italian restaurant in Starksville is called The Italian Restaurant. That's the name of it. Good food. It don't got no funny little Italian name. It ain't, but at the same time, Mississippi State, I played with guys that went to Mississippi State. And let me tell you something. You talk about pride. The only thing Mississippi State can't stand more than people that root against Mississippi State is people that went to Ole Miss. They cannot. No. It's a different. But I agree with what Jake said. Look, when you ain't been to the state of Mississippi, you don't understand how much talent is coming out of there. Because we get caught in the Georgia, the Florida, the Texas, the California. No, Mississippi put them out. Yeah. When you got swamp, backwood type places, which you love, them boys can play. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. I had nightmares of cowbells when we went to Mississippi State my freshman year. I said, dude, what is going on in this place called Starksville? But I think that now, Coach Lebby being what I think he's like 38, 39 years old, young guy, they want coaches now that's young enough to relate to the players, but old enough to you got to have that. You got to have both. Plus, Mississippi State is still a premier coaching job. If you don't think the top was finna be 16, the top 14 coaching jobs, taking nothing away from the Michigans and Ohio States of the world and the Oklahomas, the premier coaching job in the country is in the SEC. Forget what you heard. So the last thing people want from Mississippi State is for them to become a contender. Because if they do, or when they do, that's going to be a problem. Because you are a coach away. I used to think you a player away. No, you a coach away. Look at what Lane Kiffin doesn't get enough credit for what he's meant to Ole Miss. They're not going to win the West. It's freaking a gauntlet to win it. But 9-10 games used to be something to feel good about. Right now, it's just 9-10. What?
Yeah.
Man, give my Florida Gators some of them freaking wins, man. We can't even get I'm telling y'all, it is the most underrated achievement and the hardest thing to do in college is to win 6 games every year. It's the hardest thing to do. So,
perception's everything. Look at this from Maury D. Gaston. Leland Stanford wore his best overalls to meet the president of Harvard. Yes, Harvard. To make a substantial gift in memory of his deceased son. He was snubbed because he was not known and not in a suit. He took his gift out west and chartered Stanford University. That is the America that I love. Jake Wimberly.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And I've heard that story. And Appreciate Mari putting that in here on the show. That's a great story too, and absolutely a factual one. You know, you talk about the state of Mississippi. I mean, look, guys, I can tell you right now, you know, just today, I mean, and here's the problem with it. It's the good and bad problem Mississippi State and Ole Miss have. There's a lot of talent in this state, but everybody knows it. Like, I mean, Georgia has come in here and pulled guys out of here. They pulled 2 of the top players over the last 5 years out of here. Alabama, if they want somebody, they're likely going to come get them. Texas A&M is coming in here getting guys. Oregon is in here getting guys. I mean, Oregon literally went down to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. They plucked 2 or 3 guys. Stanford has pulled a guy out of here. So you've got a lot of guys. And look, guys, we've got some young talent in the state. I mean, right now, Brandon High School, the home of Will Rogers and Gardner Minshew, and Rob, we've talked about that, where I do play-by-play. Yeah. And been doing it for almost 15 years. They have a 9th grade running back, Tyson Robinson, who is electric. And how electric is he? He's a 9th grader. The last week, he's been offered by Oregon, Missouri, Ole Miss, and several others, and he's in 9th grade. So these colleges are getting in, and Ben knows this, and you guys know this isn't a secret. They're getting in now 8th grade, 9th grade. I mean, they're coming in. They're trying to get in and say, hey, look at me early. Look how beautiful we are. And they're doing it early.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, I go back to Bobby Knight offered a 7th or 8th grader up in Indiana, Damon, the point guard, the great shooting guard. He identified him. And, you know, it's almost like that coach in waiting thing when you offer them that early. If they get an offer early, that doesn't mean they need to pump the brakes, does it, Ben? That means it's just beginning.
Of course. I mean, you really think you want to know what a premier quarterback's going to come from now? I want you to watch Cam Newton's his 707 teams that go all across the country. That kid, whoever's his quarterback is going to be. I think the quarterback he just had is going to be the next quarterback in Michigan, right behind the McCarthy kid. He's going to be the next up, because what it does is we crazy when it comes to football in the South, man. We are crazy, and we don't mix no bones.
We admit it.
Yeah, listen, it's almost like this. You're trying to take the wifey out for a nice dinner, and somebody says something about, I don't think Mississippi State gonna be that good. Somebody here. Well, what's his name? Mind you, it ain't got nothing to do with you, but I think the thing is, the greatest thing about college football is only one team can win it, right? Only one team's gonna win it. But when you start looking at how these teams are doing it, how they're doing it, man, you got to have a coach that's been there a while. That means the culture, I know what I'm walking into. If you interview an Alabama player, they go, hey, man, why don't y'all go crazy when Coach Saban cuss you out? He cusses everybody out but Miss Saban. He cussed everybody out but her, right? And that's in his contract. Not allowed to say nothing to Mama Saban. That's fine. But look at the results. They're saying, hey, man, I can deal with that to get that. If you talk about Mississippi State and you talk about D linemen, look in the league. Look in the NFL right now. Some of the best, players right now coming out there. So I think that when we get to talking about what teams are lacking, man, you lacking a coach. It goes like this: coach, culture, players. That's how it goes. You get the coach first. He got to build a culture, and the players will come. Because what is helping Oregon is Bo Nix. Bo Nix goes from Auburn to Oregon, and look at what's going on. So don't act like what these players are looking at. Dan Lanning knows this. I might get players from Oregon. I need a quarterback from the South. I got to get a kid that can take punishment, right? But can take coaching. So I understand that when it comes to recruiting, I used to think it was crazy to get an 8th grade kid. But that 8th grade kid gonna keep developing, because that's what it is now. People say, what do these quarterbacks use that no one else has? Leverage. They know they good. If Nick Saban say you good, Nick Saban offered my kid in 8th grade, what you gonna tell him? So, I still look forward to the team. Listen, the teams like the Mississippi States of the world, they are what make the conference great. Because what happens is, this is what we do in the SEC. Everybody knows about Georgia. Everybody knows about Alabama. Everybody knows about LSU. What we do is this: hey, bro, I bet our teams that get beat to beat your teams in your conference. Yeah. I bet if Mississippi State was over, that's what we've always done. And then people say, I said, dude, it ain't that Mississippi State ain't good. Look at who they play every freaking year. So I think that getting the coach in, getting the quarterback in, getting some guys from the transfer portal, and let them understand that, look, man, if you listen, SEC teams, we don't want no big city. We don't want teams in the big city. That's why we got Gainesville. Yeah. Right. That's why you got Starkville. I don't need no skyscrapers. I don't know. I don't know the biggest building in Starkville. I think they say the biggest building. You can hurt your ankle if you jump off of it. You can't kill yourself, thank God. Yeah. But if you jump off of it, you will hurt your ankle. I want cities like that to be able to help groom these players.
I agree with you. And Jake, I know you've just got a couple of minutes, but the reality is where it's important, it matters, it's easier to get things done. The collective, you said when Levy got off the plane, he wore a Mississippi State NIL collective shirt. You either make the commitment to be big and go all out, or you're just in the way. Talked about that commitment at Mississippi State. Got a lot of Mississippi State fans texting me right now going, talk about NIL, and then let people, before you go, know how they can follow you. We got to get you back on again next Friday with Ben. I like y'all. I mean, y'all two together. I'm sitting here trying to take notes. See, I've got this show recorded, though, so I'll go back and transcribe it tonight. But, Jake, awesome stuff with you and Ben.
No, and I appreciate that. And, of course, I got to get Ben back on the show, and we'll do that next week as well. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate it. Quickly on the collective in Mississippi State, I've said this, and I think this goes with any university. Obviously, depending on the university, you're going to get, donors and dollars coming in, from different pockets. And, you take, for instance, SMU out there, talking with David McCray. He's the state treasurer here in the state of Mississippi. He's an SMU grad, and he's talked to me, openly on my show about the money that's in the state of Texas that's committed to SMU, and they have an influx of oil money. So, I mean, they have that advantage where, other schools may not. But if you talk about a team like Mississippi State or a program like Mississippi State and anyone in the SEC or anywhere in that matter, you've got, I'd say, Rob, 3 levels of donors. You've got your traditional donor that's going to go through like the School of Engineering or the School of Business or whatever that is. And then they go on to build a big business, he or she does. Maybe they go back and they build a building, on the campus with their name on it. That's one way of giving. The second way of giving is your traditional sports donors. You're in your Bulldog Club, Rebel Club, Gator Club. You can see that, where that money goes, and you're going to get season tickets. You're going to get parking passes. So there's something to show. The third level now is the NIL. And right now there's not a whole lot to go on. Like, okay, I'm going to give my school another $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is. What do I get in return? And I think that's going to be the challenge for these collectives is over the length of the cycle, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, what does the donors get back out of it? Now, obviously, I think Mississippi State is in a good place. They had an influx of money and have since Jeff Levy's there, but winning ultimately will drive those collectives. As you win, people will give. As you lose, they will not.
Yeah, and it's all market driven. And I'm going to put something. This is when we talked to Jackie Sherrill. I said, "You think A&M will pull the trigger and get rid of Jimbo this year?" And he said, "Look, when oil is at $75, $85, $90 a barrel, yeah, they'll do it." Well, here's this interesting stat, y'all. What we buy in this area, you too, Jake, in Memphis in the area, is West Texas Intermediate Crude Oil, WTI. That's the symbol. I put it up there. It's $70.65, up $1.89 a barrel right now. Most of that comes from the Permian Basin, which is way out in West Texas and parts of New Mexico. 4.2 million barrels a day. Okay. The state of Texas, they print money. 2/3 of the money from oil and natural gas, the state money, goes to Austin every year. 1/3 goes to A&M. So they spend money like the federal government, just for the record. Other schools can't be doing that. But even A&M, people love to use that. They love opium. Other people's money. They're paying him $19.6 million within 60 days. The other part is an amortization scale of $7.6 million for the next 8 years. And that'd be a nice, thing to get into your check once a year. But they didn't pay him $76.2 million up front. And all these idiots out there that go, "Oh, that's nothing. Those guys out there." Yes, it is. Try dealing with wealthy people for a living, and they get a $75 IRA fee charge on their account, and they have a stroke. Trust me, I know it. I'm in that business. Okay? People, all this, Jake, this is a civil engineer, and you put out some of the absolute best content on college football anywhere, just like Ben. And your stuff is incredible. But look, let's do this again next week. I absolutely love having you on. Appreciate you taking time to join us. And Bo Carter is on with us, former sports information director at Mississippi State. There's movement in the aisle. Bo Carter cranks up the typewriter. We'll wrap this one in maroon and white. But great stuff as always, Jake. And again, $70 a barrel oil, that's good for the consumer. But A&M, how they going to go, get rid of a coach if they got oil that cheap? I like $30 a barrel oil. See what that gets you. They may have to hire Brian Harsin.
That's right. Hey, guys, I appreciate it. Check me out on Twitter. I'll be over there, obviously, like everybody else all the time, at Jake Wim. And, of course, you can stream the show on the zone1059.com, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Hey, man, love it having you on here. We're going to take a quick break. Ben, hang with us if you can. Bo Carter, be right back for top of hour number 2 after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you. I guess I know I think Ben had to get rolling. And bottom line, man, I learned so much when I'm on with, good God, all these great guys. The state of Mississippi, Bo, you spent a lot of time down there. I mean, and Ben just said, he goes, I played with a lot of guys in the NFL that went to Mississippi State. I mean, they do. They love that school. I mean, James Shimon, friend of mine from Memphis, is listening right now. He's a Mississippi State guy. We had him live from the Junction before the LSU game, and I think that was sort of the canary in the coal mine of the kind of season Mississippi State was going to have. But, you know what great thing about college is? College is your family. People adopt a college. It doesn't matter whether you graduated from there or not. There are huge donors to every school out there that never stepped foot on that campus as a student. But by God, they've been back. And then there are people that are self-made that barely got out of high school. They just love a school. And that's why, win or lose, the fans are coming back the next week. As long as they see a commitment to winning and there's the will to win there, they'll keep coming back. Bo Carter, National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America. There's so much happening in college sports right now. And that first hour, Ben Troupe, Jake Wimberly from down in Jackson, covering a lot. But I think when we talk about it, Maury Gaston, mechanical engineer, Sylacauga, Alabama. A little bit of trivia here, Bo Carter. What city is the marble capital of the world?
The hometown of Jim Neighbors, Sylacauga, Alabama.
Only you would know that.
Hey, everybody. And Steve, my old friend who just passed away, Steve Sprayberry, who was a all-SEC tackle for Alabama, coached at Alabama and Mississippi State, for some really wonderful people down there. Yeah, and Doug Layton, former member of the Alabama Crimson Tide Radio Network, was from there. Our friend Lee Perryman, Radio Alabama Group, who built 137 stations for the BBC over a 20-year period. By the way, another bit of trivia, Lee's family, the Perrymans, were good friends with Jim Neighbors' family. So they would go out to Hollywood every year and get to go on the set, and they would be doing the Andy Griffith Show. And then there was Marlo Thomas doing, That Girl and all these different, Danny Thomas Show. Bit of trivia. When they would talk, remember Marlo Thomas would talk about the Perrymans? That's the family. Lee Perryman.
Yeah, Radio Alabama Group. Lee's an Alabama grad. You know the ticker that you see at the bottom of your TV screen that we've had since 9/11 that goes the nonstop crawl? Lee Perryman is the one who came up with that. So another bit of trivia. And I don't know who she is, but I would love to meet her and have a photograph taken with her. Miss Marble.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Miss Marble, just like Miss Rice Festival in Arkansas. And let me assure you, she's going to be nothing but a smoke show in the state of Arkansas. To borrow the line from WMJ over here next to me here in Lee Hall. Yancy Porter checks in from the Pine Country, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Rebel Yell Hotline Monday nights, 6 o'clock, Sports 56, WHBQ, and Super Talk, Mississippi. Man, this is like a wild show today. Ben Troupe was on, Jake Wimberly down in Jackson. Yancy, we got into some topics earlier with what's going on. NIL, everybody's going to get $30,000. Like Ben said, no, they're not. It's not that easy. But let's get your thoughts right now, Yancy. Ole Miss going to their second New Year's Six Bowl in the last 3 years. Let that sink in. And any player on the Ole Miss team that's thinking about quitting and not playing in the bowl game, okay, don't miss out on the opportunity to make history. The winningest team in Ole Miss's proud football history could happen with a win in Atlanta at the Peach Bowl against Penn State. Are you going? Do you have your bus tickets yet?
Yeah, we're actually going to be in Blue Ridge. I don't know if you've ever visited Blue Ridge, the town there in Georgia. So it's great timing for the Porter families. We were going to be up that way anyway. So yes, we will be there.
Look, Penn State, James Franklin, 3-17 in Big Ten or in top 10 matchups. Ole Miss is sitting there at number 11. Are you worried about that?
Penn State's got a good team now. They are formidable. There's a reason they're a 3.5-point favorite over Ole Miss. Their line of scrimmage is really, really good, and quite frankly, they lost by less than a touchdown in both their top 5 matchups against Ohio State and Michigan this year, and Ole Miss did not fare as well against Alabama and Georgia.
Bo Carter, Yancy Porter on right now. Get ready to go to a big bowl game like this. Of course, all of us growing up, the goal for every SEC player before practice started was let's get to the Sugar Bowl. For Ole Miss, I mean, they're in high cotton, man. 2 New Year's Six bowls for anybody. My Auburn Tigers can't say that. I mean, they made it into a bowl this year at 6-6, but look at how big it is. I just got back from a week in Atlanta. Was down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium Saturday for the SEC championship game. These are great times. Don't underappreciate them, correct?
Yeah, it's real. I mean, it's the bowl situation is good. 44 bowl games this year, Rob, an all-time record. You can't beat it. 7 coming up on the 16th, and of course, got the Army-Navy game tomorrow. So this is as good a football week, and Heisman Trophy, you name it, it's going on this week. Yeah, and
Yancy, go ahead.
I agree. I just think they need to cut down on the number of bowls when you're having two teams with losing records into the bowls. It's too many. The bowls should not be awarded to anybody with a losing record. I would say even with the 500 record, I think it needs to go down significantly. What did you say? 42? I would put it in the 25 to 30 range and make it into where it's a true reward for teams to go to a bowl.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, a bowl game used to be a reward. In the fraternity, if you didn't make your grades, you had to eat beans. If you made above a 3.0 or 4.0, whatever, you got to eat a steak. There are consequences, okay? I mean, if you're, not going to class and not trying and everything like that, you shouldn't be rewarded. Bo Carter, what 44 bowls, that's 88 teams out of 133 Division I schools.
Ridiculous.
It really,
yeah.
I agree with Yancy. It's way too, And again, as we all know, it's all driven by ESPN is broadcasting, I think, 39 of the bowl games. So they can package this stuff up and really makes, I hate to say it, it's the way of the world, but when they package these things, they can sell, advertising for 39 bowl games. And Yancy, you're aware of this too. They really hit the sponsors that like the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. They've got the Goodyear Blimp. They've got Goodyear ads running every 20 minutes, all states on 15 spots during the Sugar Bowl. It's just, it's been way overly commercialized, in my opinion.
I'm going to be interested to see what happens when you go to a 12-team playoff. What's going to happen? Are they going to be able to sell those sponsorships to these bowl games to 5 and 7, 6 and 6 teams? That's going to be the curious point to me, because we're going to see even less eyeballs on those bowl games for sure.
Yeah, and I think I go back 40 years ago. I remember in the late 70s and early 80s, I remember going to the Liberty Bowl. I think it was 1987, Ohio State and Air Force. There were 5,000 people at the Liberty Bowl. And that's when Bud Dudley put that deal together with the service academies. Ohio State, I watched Air Force stomp Ohio State. John Cooper was the coach. Coop's kids, I think, back then. But, I think you can water down the system. You're right. We all know what participation trophies really are. You can't look, there are consequences. The great ones in anything, sports, business, life, they do the extra things that most people don't want to do. That's fair to say. So, and look, all right, let's talk about something, Yancy. Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. You and I talk every week. Bo, you're on here. Let's put a few things. Number one, I think he's got a ton of respect for Nick Saban. Nick Saban resurrected his career, and there's mutual respect between the two. Fair to say, or am I wrong?
Oh, yeah. Nick Saban is who he models everything after. That is who he looks up to, the one and only. It used to be Pete, but Nick is he's the idol. I think that Saban really made a huge impact while he was coaching there, and he uses so much of his model that he uses at Ole Miss after Nick.
Well, yeah, but go ahead, Bo.
No, same with Steve Sarkisian. Remember, he kind of resurrected his career after he got let go at USC and came back with Nick and got the job at Texas, and they're in the college football playoff now. So that's another. There's something about Nick Saban magic, as you guys know.
Speaking of Nick, just look what he did. Who would have, outside of Bama fans and media, who would have picked Bama to beat Georgia? It's amazing what he's done with that team. It's amazing. It really is.
Last week I had my son Wilson and I both. I had Bama to win 31-15, and like, what? I said, you got to realize Nick Saban. Look at the trends. 10-1 now in SEC championship games. He lost the one in 08 against Florida. We remember that game, and then the next year he moved Tim Tebow to tears, literally, on the sidelines. But Yancy, I want to get back to Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss people, and you know this, I've been to a lot of games in Oxford, 52 so far. I'm whatever reason, I remember these things. A lot of my Ole Miss friends would say, Browne, we're happy being, 7-4, 8-3, and Auburn, y'all want to fire the coach if you don't play well in one game. I'm like, well, we're not. He goes, yeah, you're bad. Alabama. But when you win big, like Ole Miss is winning now, you're gonna see the same thing among the fans, because once you eat at the best steakhouse in town, you're not going to be happy with a Salisbury steak TV dinner. Ole Miss, when y'all get this 11th win against Penn State, which I believe you will, you've got 4 of the top 5 players in Mississippi committed. One of them's going to Auburn. The other 4 are going to Ole Miss. Talk about just the general mood around the football complex in Oxford, Mississippi, Yancy, because the times, as Bob Dylan famously said, many times, that they, yeah.
Well, winning just breeds more winning, right? Yes, Ole Miss fans would have been happy after the NCAA probation and what they went through to win 7-8 games, but those days are over. I mean, it's playoffs or bust next year, especially with the team they're bringing back, returning, Dart and Judkins and the rest of the crew. It's, there's going to be a lot of expectations next season. They've just got to improve on the offensive line. They've got to get more quality depth. We saw what happened to Ole Miss when they lost a couple of their offensive line starters there at the end of the season. It was a different team. So, yes, they will return one of them in the bowl game, Jaden Williams, which should definitely help their cause against Penn State. But they've got to get more depth on the offensive line. And right now, they only have 2 offensive line commitments. It's something that's intriguing to say the least. So they're going to have to go in the portal. They're going to have to hit on a couple of these portal guys, and they're going to have to make sure that they return the guys that are the starters right now, which all of them are eligible outside of 2 of them. The 2 guys that are run out of eligibility are Korn and McGee. McGee was obviously the weak link on that offensive line. So Pettis said he's going to come back. All eyes now are on Jaden Williams. Is he going to come back or not? And then they've got to go. They got to go get a couple impact transfer portals, but outside of that, they're pretty set around all the other possessions for next season. So, there's no doubt that the 2024 season will be playoffs or bust.
Yeah, and that's this. Let's flip the script a little bit. Bo, you're out there in the Metroplex. Love it. Dallas, Fort Worth, actually in Carrollton, almost in Oklahoma, Ken says. But look what they're doing at SMU. As a friend of mine said, look, they got money at SMU. That's for damn sure. And they call their tailgate area the Boulevard, okay?
Boulevard. Yeah.
They raised $150 million in a week in a quick fundraising call. They passed the hat around. $150 million.
Amazing.
I mean, put that in perspective, people. And they got him a hell of a coach, Rhett Lashley. I've followed him for a long time. Played for Gus Malzahn since 8th grade up in Springdale, Shiloh Christian. Played at Arkansas. They just signed him up a big new contract. The 214, Dallas's team. I think SMU is going to be a pain in the ass for Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, because not that those schools don't have money. And not that they haven't taken a few liberties in the past when it comes to securing the signature of a player. SMU, we know what happened to them 40 plus years ago. But what I'm hearing is SMU is on a mission to stick it in the face of the NCAA and say, now it's legal. Talk about what's going on there in Highland Park.
Yeah, you're right, Rob. They're just 40 years ahead of their time on the NIL.
40 years ahead of their time.
Cars, women, whatever you need. No, it was kind of a loose cannon out there. But no, you're right. They've got tons of money. They finally deferred it from the building program. Every 2 years, there's a new building on campus named the Yancy so-and-so science building.
Yeah.
And they finally have turned things. Once they got off the death penalty and started winning some ball games, I think the fans' interest in SMU. I mean, you go back to the 30s and 40s. Heck, SMU won the national championship in 1935. So, and that's almost 100 years ago. But they've got the money and they've got the interest, and they've really Lashley's really recruited well and used the transfer portal to his advantage.
Yeah,
and
Yancy,
they're also in a Power 5 conference now, right? When you can sell that really changes things. And so, making that move to the ACC is going to do wonders. And obviously, they got a great coaching staff to be able to turn it around as quickly as they have.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. You look at, okay, Yancy, Ole Miss wrapped up a fundraising campaign. Let's throw these numbers. $1.5 billion for academics at Ole Miss. $500 million for athletics. Last year, you broke the news on Sidelines, Yancy, that $350 million stadium retrofit project at Ole Miss was put on hold. The Grove Collective raised a lot of money when Kiffin was, talking with Auburn or whoever, but he's staying. He ain't going anywhere. I think he loves being at Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss people love him. They both accept him for who he is and what he is and the way he likes to do things, and that's fine. They're getting the wins. That's what happens. $2 billion. I mean, Ole Miss, like Mississippi State, really, Auburn, Alabama, UVA, UNC, state located, but 95% privately funded. That's where we are. But Yancy, years ago, would you have ever dreamed that Ole Miss would be able to raise $2 billion in a fundraising campaign, which is one of the biggest in SEC history? So all you people want to get your cheap shots in on Mississippi, put your lip over your head and swallow.
Yeah, there's a lot of pride within the Ole Miss fan base, and I think that with what happened with the NCAA situation, really galvanized the fan base and unified it and said, "Hey, let's get us out of this hole. Let's show everybody what Ole Miss is about." And they made that commitment, and the fans came through.
Yeah. And now, what is the next step on the stadium? Are they still going to do that retrofit project? I mean, $350 million is a lot of money. I think the stadium looks great, but you know better than me.
Well, it needs a lot of work in the interior of the stadium, underneath the stadium, the concourses, the bathrooms, the places you don't see on TV. So yes, I do think that there's still going to be a major project that happens, but I think they're still trying to wait to see what rules come into place with this NIL. Is it going to continue to be a free market? They got to see what's going to stick with these rulings with the NIL before they go forward.
Yeah, Bo, NIL again, it's here. That proposal came out yesterday. What did you take away from that? I mean, the information that we read is every student athlete, $30,000. Title IX rules will apply. And where I'm going is 97.3% of the money coming in on NIL is going to male athletes. Okay. Well, 9-0, the Supreme Court ruled you cannot infringe on an individual's right to earn a living. What do we say in the the right to pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Okay. Again, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, 30,000 for every student. That sounds like socialism. That'll never work. The free market. Hey, if 97.3% of it's going to male athletes, that's the free market. Exactly. What do you think the Supreme Court's going to rule on that? 10 to nothing?
Very, very interesting. Texas Tech kind of did this a couple of years ago when the NIL first came out. They did a $25,000 grant for everybody on the football team. They did not do that for the women's athletics department. That raised some eyebrows or whatever. But I'm like you, Rob, and Yancy knows this too. With the NIL, and as you say, now it's legal, and the transfer portal going crazy all the time. I think they're trying to avoid, and this has been the big problem, getting into bidding wars like what happened with Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback. Ohio State gave him $1 million, and I think he talked to Texas for his true sophomore redshirt freshman year and said, "Can you give me 1.2?" And they said, "Yeah, come on down." So it's almost like the Wild West days again. So I'm like you, I don't think it'll hold up in a court of law. Somebody's there are enough attorneys out there to chase that thing down pretty quickly.
Yeah, Yancy, have you seen that?
Yeah, the only way that they can start controlling between who's going to get the money, the title rules with 50% goes to men, 50% to women, is if the money comes from the schools, and that would have to change the model where the fans and the businesses are not contributing to the NIL, and it becomes revenue sharing, and the players become employees. Then you can have Title IX, right? And until that happens, you can't tell a business that you can't give. If I am, I don't know, if I'm Walmart, you can't tell Walmart, the judge, and say your money has to be equally distributed in your marketing campaign between women and men. That is impossible to do. You can't tell John Doe the same thing, that he wants to spend his money. Now you can if it becomes revenue sharing, which should be the model. This was all about the colleges and the NCAA keeping all the money while the players are risking CTE, risking lifelong injuries, and basically employees of the university all through their college life and not getting any money. But the colleges got greedy, and the NCAA got greedy, and they said, "Okay, that's fine. Here, we'll allow you to make money, but we're still not going to share any of the money with you. We'll just get your fan bases to start contributing money to NIL funds, and they can pay you." Well, that's not what all this was supposed to be. And so they have got to get a revenue sharing model. And then that's fine. Then you can have Title IX, and they can say, well, you got to spend X amount on dollars on women just like you do on men. But until then, good luck, because that's not going to hold up in court.
Yeah, and what's going on with NIL, remember, the universities have nothing to do with it. They kind of wink and nod, okay? These are private deals. Let's call it what it is. The colleges and universities are bloated bureaucracies, okay? They move at glacial speed. You've got all these administrators with bloated salaries in many cases. I mean, who else gets tenured? You think MJ and I would be tenured? I'd love it if in my business they would say, as a bond salesman or as a financial advisor, you get tenure, and you're paid for eternity on the average of your 3 best years' earnings for eternity. You can do whatever you want. That's not the real world. And college is supposed to be preparing people for the real world. And when it comes to this deal about every athlete gets $30,000, the NCAA, remember, it's a voluntary, you join the NCAA voluntarily and submit to their rules. Remember, the NCAA has no subpoena power. Everything's circumstantial evidence, okay? It says a lot about the dichotomy and the duality of man, okay? You can convict a school, put them on probation based on hearsay. Ask any homicide detective. And I know one. He's investigated over 350 murders. It's very hard to convict without a body. Very, almost impossible. But Yancy and Bo, y'all are right. This proposal by the NCAA, what it's going to do, gentlemen, ladies, it's going to drive schools more toward the exit to say, we don't need the NCAA. Because these NIL collectives, wake up, people, flush out your headgear, and realize they are operating privately, separate from the universities. They can do whatever they want. And if you dare to try to infringe on an NIL collective's investment in a student athlete, oh, wait till you see that court case. I can assure you, Mother Teresa wouldn't want to watch.
No. And you hit the nail on the head too, Rob. Miami Hurricanes had a big problem. Of course, the guy that and Yancy, you might know more about this than I do, but I think the guy's company pretty much went bankrupt, and they did not make the NIL payouts, and the student athletes sitting there literally holding the bag with no money in it, I guess. And there's I see a case that the other point I was going to make too is the NCAA is making I think they net like $2.5 billion a year, mainly off the CBS basketball TV contract, the ESPN stuff. So a lot of the schools are saying, hey, if we're going to split this stuff up, Charlie Baker, and you want to do 30,000, we need some profit sharing from the NCAA too, because they're very top heavy with administrators with like you said, Rob, big salaries.
Yeah, and Yancy, it's not to say that you shouldn't pay a professor or anyone money, but tenure is coach for life. Tenure is not a 10-year contract, which Notre Dame started with the 10-year deal to Charlie Weiss. How'd that work out? Oh, my God. Tenure is wrong. Nobody. You know what? You get, I've never, in the free market, tenure, it's anathema to the free market. Yancy, you know that. Bo, you know that. All right, look, let's take a quick commercial break. I'm going to come right back. Got a lot of football I want to talk about, but when I get two scholars like this, if I could get in a room with Plato and Aristotle and a good bottle of whiskey, we'd have some fun. And this is about as close to it as you can get. We're going to take this quick break from one of our sponsors we're proud to be associated with. Before we do it, let me say something about the Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Justin Ross. It's locally owned. They're all over the place. They've got this one on Goodman Road in Olive Branch. There are hours of operation Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay? They've got specialists that work there, get you the right vitamins, the right supplements, probiotics. You see all this stuff on TV, on the commercials about the Vitamin Shop and all. This is real stuff. Your health. There's only one you. Do the best you can to take care of you. Go to the Vitamin Shop. We are proud to have them as a sponsor, and we're going to be right back to talk more. Bo Carter, Yancy Porter on the final segment of Sidelines on this Friday, December 8th of 2023. Almost Christmas.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Right, Rob Browne back here with Yancy Porter, Bo Carter. Guys, again, we're the Supreme Court said it 9-0. They never said you've got to distribute it equally among men and women. This is where the bureaucrats will come in and impose their will. Those that will can. Those that can't, they do other things. Those that can't do either oftentimes work for the government. I'll just say that.
Right. That's right.
Yancy, let's looking at college football right now. I hadn't even gotten into this with you, and I'm going to start with you and then to Bo. The 4-team college football playoff, we know who the 4 teams are. Do you agree or disagree with the selection of the 13-member committee that was holed up in a bunker at Motel 6 in Dallas for several days?
Well, this is going to be surprising to most, but I don't agree, and it's not because of Florida State, but if you're going to use the eye test and say who truly are the 4 best teams, how in the world do you pick Washington over Georgia? That's where I disagree about it. If you're going to go by just how you qualified on paper and your record, and then Florida State should be in. So how can they knock Florida State out and put Alabama in and say the eye test tells me that Alabama is better than Florida State right now, which they are, no question about it. But how can you honestly say that and then turn around and leave Georgia out? It makes no sense. There is nobody in this country, no sporting analysts, no handicap picking service, no coaches. Nobody thinks that Georgia is not one of the top 4 teams in the country. Nobody. So no, I don't agree with their selection, because Georgia, if you're going to go by who are the 4 best teams and you're going to leave out of Florida State that went 13-0 and say because of the eye test of who the best teams are right now, there's no one. Yes, Georgia had an off day. Yes, Georgia had 4 offensive starters out against Alabama, and they were limited. And Alabama played a hell of a game, but Georgia was not on top of their game. But, you can't tell me that Georgia's not one of the 4 best teams, and you can't tell me that anybody thinks that if Washington and Georgia lined up, who would win the 7, 8 out of 10 times, it would be Georgia, if not 9 or 10. Washington's defense is not a top 4 quality team defense. They're just not. I sat there and watched them game after game, and they play 2-hand touch defense. It is they are going to get absolutely bombarded in the playoffs.
Yeah, and let me, Bo, as a segue to you, always give credit where it's due in journalism. Philip Marshall, you know him, 55 years now. I absolutely love him. He just tells it like it is. Benny Marshall's son, legendary sports writer, a former editor of the Birmingham News. I was reading in his stuff, in his column a couple of days ago, the whole most deserving versus 4 best is a bogus creation. Mm-hmm. Did anyone really believe TCU was one of the 4 best teams last season, or Cincinnati before that? No, it was a feel-good story to be inclusive. I got news for you, man. If you go to college and, let's say you got a daughter or a son that goes to college, and Susie Q comes home at Christmas and gets her grades and goes, I worked my tail off and I got a 4.0. Yeah. Then you get this report card from the feel-good people, the inclusive people. Your roommate, Sally, went out every night, was the life of the party, barely made it to class, got a 1.0, and you get a letter and says, well, I know you got a 4.0 and you worked really hard, but Sally, your roommate, she around, got a 1.0. We're going to combine your 4.0, her 1.0. Instead of a straight A average, you both have a 2.5. What do you mean? Welcome to socialism. Doesn't work.
That's right.
With NIL.
It's really tough.
It ain't going to work.
And I totally agree with Yancy. Florida State should have gotten in. And, for that matter, pardon me, excuse me, Georgia, sitting there 12-1, for that matter, Ohio State loses to Michigan by 6 points. There was one proposal in the Florida legislature to crank it up, add those 2 teams, and have a 16 play. Which, I mean, remember, if y'all remember this, Yancy was a young boy when this happened, but they moved the Fiesta Bowl in 1987 to the day after New Year's. So Miami and Penn State could play. I guess the first ex facto national championship or whatever. Yeah. So it's they've had stuff happen, and ESPN would jump on that like white on rice or whatever too. So just really you feel terrible, and it really felt terrible for the Florida State coach and the players. And unfortunately, news account said this: Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, was one of them that said we can't have the 12-team playoff. They sort of had holdouts from the Power 5 conferences. They said, we've got to wait till 2024 to start the 12-team CFP. And they kind of came back to bite them, I guess.
The alliance. Yeah. Yancy, going into the conference championship games last weekend, there were 4, as Sonny Wilson would say down at Alex's Tavern, 1445 Jackson, there were 4 undefeated teams: Georgia, Washington, Michigan, and Florida State. Okay. That's more than any season in the BCS college football playoff era. Coming out of those games, there were still 3. Only Georgia lost. Takeaways from that. Again, more great material by Philip Marshall. Catch him on Auburn Undercover. He's just getting better and better the longer he writes. Never retire, Philip Marshall. Love you.
I just think that Georgia, we saw, what was it, 2 years ago when Alabama beat Georgia in the championship game, and Georgia ran through the playoffs and won the national championship. If you're going to use the eye test and leave someone like Florida State out and say that, they're just not as good as those other 4 teams, can you honestly say that Washington is better than Georgia? You can't talk out both sides out of your mouth, and there's nobody that thinks that Washington is better than Georgia. It's just, like you said, putting Cincinnati in that year, putting TCU in, the feel-good story, participation trophies. Mm-hmm. If you're going to say eye test, and then stick to it, don't leave arguably the best team, if not the second best team, out of the playoffs.
Well, and Ben Troupe brought this up in the first segment. What conferences are, you want to be in a strong conference. And I pointed this out. Ryan Day is 56-7, including those 3 games he coached to kick off the 2018 season when Urban Meyer was in timeout for some off the field issues. Okay, he's 39-3 in the Big Ten. He's only lost 3 conference games in 5 years, and they're all to Michigan. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, Ohio State had beaten Michigan 15 out of 16 years. Now Michigan has won their 43rd, their 44th, and their 45th Big Ten titles. The Big Ten was founded in 1896. Between Michigan and Ohio State, they've got about 90 of those titles. Call it whatever you want, but it's a monopoly. Okay? I mean, it is. It's a monopoly. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, Ben Troupe pointed this out. Florida State got screwed, if you want to be honest, because Clemson's down. Mm-hmm. Okay? And Miami's down. Virginia Tech's down. North Carolina's down. They hadn't really been up lately. But Bo, it matters. You can sit there and pull against every team in your conference except for yourself, then it's not going to help you. You want to beat everybody you play, and you want them to be at their absolute best when you beat them because it's better for you and it'll help you get in the playoffs. Isn't that the truth?
That is. And Rob, you and Yancy pointed this out. Remember, before the Big 8 conference merged with the Southwest Conference, they used to call it the Big 2 and the Little 6. Remember, Oklahoma and Nebraska had that monopoly like you were talking about with Ohio State and Michigan, and it kind of self-sustains the myth or whatever too. But I'm in total agreement with y'all. Washington won a lot of close games, beat Oregon twice on field goals, right? Toward the end of the game. So I don't know. I agree with Yancy. There's no way Georgia's not a better team than Washington.
Yeah, and think about this: before Bob Devaney left Wyoming, the cradle of coaches, along with Miami. Fred Akers came from Wyoming. Pat Dye came from Wyoming. Pretty good coaches. Before he came to Nebraska in 1962 to 72, they used to call the Big 8 Oklahoma and the Seven Dwarves. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Dopey and sleepy and nappy. That's what they did. And Yancy, look at Nebraska from 62. They have the last time they didn't sell out a football game in Lincoln, Nebraska, was 1961. Yancy. I mean, I wasn't even around then. And then, but Yancy, looking at this whole thing, I guess, again, I like what Philip Marshall said. Where did we come up most deserving versus 4 best? If you're on the committee, and keep in mind, gentlemen, the chairman of this 13-member committee, Boo Corrigan, is an ACC guy. He's the athletic director at North Carolina State. His father, Gene Corrigan, former commissioner of the ACC. Tony Barnhart was on the show with us earlier this week over in Atlanta. Said, man, I loved his father, one of the greatest commissioners of all time. But Tony even said the committee got it right because Georgia did not do their part. But Yancy, what about that? 4 the most deserving versus 4 best. Where do you stand on which side?
Well, I think all of this is going to be ended next year, right? Once you go to 12 teams, you got 6 at-large bids, you got the 5 Power 5 conference winners, and this G5 winner, which I totally disagree with. Again, we cannot have participation trophies. Have a G5 playoffs, have their own playoffs, have their own champion. I mean, could you imagine Liberty getting in over, Ole Miss this year? It's not, and that's going to come up again next year. The G5 team will not be one of the top 12 teams next year. We all know that. And so it's again, that's going to be a huge debate next year, right? But at least we're going to get the top 5 or 6 teams in. At least you're not going to have a situation like Florida State and Georgia being left out this year. And again, I'm surprised that all of the debate has been on Florida State. Why is the debate not on Georgia?
Yep.
Georgia was the consensus best team all season long. They had lost a game in 28 games, and you leave them out. It just, but yes, I get it. How does Alabama jump from 8-4 with Florida State going undefeated? So next year, I think it resolves a lot of the issues. But let's talk about, the four that did get in. Who do you think? I think Texas is going to win it all. A lot of people think Alabama is going to win it all. A lot of people think Michigan is going to win it all. I don't think anybody thinks that Washington is going to win it all because they're not in that group. So who do you think wins? Who are you two? Who do y'all think wins it?
My four best teams are Michigan, although they didn't play much of a schedule, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. But, I mean, that's not who got in. But I think Alabama wins the national championship. Alabama is like trying to keep a great white shark out of the bathing area, where people are swimming. Good luck on that one. When they're this close to a national championship, they're sniffing blood. They feel it. They taste it. And once they've experienced, eating a seal, they can't get enough of them, Bo.
And Yancy made a good point too. Of course, Texas beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa, which is almost unheard of, for a non. But again, I just my 92-year-old mom lives in North Alabama, and she is she's more of an Auburn Vanderbilt person, North Alabama. But every time Saban pulls one out, she just shakes her head. How is that guy so lucky? Well, he's a pretty good coach too.
Yeah, he is.
That helps.
Yeah.
That helps.
Well, and the thing is, Texas, that's a weird deal. Who did Texas have to play for their conference championship? Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma in the last edition of Bedlam 27-24. The next week, they go to the bounce house and play Gus Malzahn's UCF Knights and get beat 49-3. How do you explain that? That doesn't make any sense. And then look who Alabama had to play. You find me a fan base out there. Let's be completely fair. All right. Find me a fan base out there, and I'm just going to throw this scenario. All right. You're number 8 in the playoff rankings in the toughest conference, in the toughest division in all of college football / sports. You're going to play number 1 in the country. They've won 29 straight games. They're going for a three-peat of national championships. They've lost 1 game in the last 40. And if you beat them, tell me you're going to tell that fan base, but you're still not going to make the playoffs at number 4 or 3. No way. And y'all, look, I'm an Auburn grad. In the interest of full disclosure, I own shares of the company, okay? But think about this. Georgia's winning streak started with a win over Alabama in Indianapolis. And was Alabama penalized when John Mechie III was injured in the SEC championship game in 2021? No. Were they penalized when Jamison Williams was injured in the first half of the national championship? And they penalized Florida State for Jordan Davis being hurt, okay? But you think about this. Georgia's winning streak started by winning the national championship over Alabama. And prior to Georgia winning the national championship in 2021 over Alabama, the schools that border the state of Georgia, Clemson, Florida State, Florida, Miami, Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama, those schools combined amongst them, journalistically speaking, more than 2, you say among. One or 2, you say between. Among those schools, they won 26 national championships from 1981 up through the 2020 season. Georgia had not won one. They finally got pissed off enough and went and got them a national championship with a big-time coach who learned from the master, Nick Saban. And I'm just saying, Georgia's winning streak ended with a loss to Alabama in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Interesting stuff here, Yancy. Bo, somebody want to grab that one? I'm so hopped up on coffee and, sniffing paint fumes, I forgot where I started and what I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, just the job that Saban did. I mean, the two things that was holding Alabama back, especially towards the beginning of the season, were one, quarterback play with Bill Rowe. Couldn't read the defenses. And two, their offensive line. They couldn't pass block. They were giving up 4 to 5 sacks a game. And then by the season's end, right, why did Alabama win that game against Georgia? Because of one, Milroe is now able to read defenses. He has developed right in front of everybody's eyes. And two, that offensive line was able to not only neutralize, but they whipped Georgia's defensive line. And those are the reasons, those two reasons, which were Alabama's weaknesses at the beginning of the year, became their team's strengths. And that's all coaching. And there's nothing else to say about that.
Great points. I was going to say, too, Rob's probably heard the chorus of this. Why did Auburn only rush 2 guys now on that last touchdown? The old rule of thumb, you always rush 3 people, or at least, and unfortunately, had single coverage on the 2 guys in the corner. So, you let a guy like Miller, the way he's been playing, and you open the gate.
Yeah, look, we got Yancy Porter on here right now on the I'll tell you one thing, on the Ole Miss Report with Bo Carter, and Yancy sponsored by the Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road, Olive Branch, Mississippi. They're open every day of the week. Keep in mind, they're open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., and they'll be opening up this spring in Oxford, Mississippi, the home of the University of Mississippi, the Ole Miss Rebels, and also the home of Yancy Porter. Also, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the Historic Square in Collierville, Tennessee, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sundays through the end of the year now, through Christmas, 1 to 5 p.m. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots, largest collection of duck heads you'll ever find in your life, shirts, pants, vests, jackets. They've got some great-looking camo pants, upland pants. Hey, STS, Western wear, and luggage. They've also got Pendleton, awesome shirts, jackets, Schaefer Outdoors. Let's be honest, folks. You wonder where Rip gets his clothes? Schaefer Outdoors. They've got Rip's jacket. They've got John Dutton's Ranch jacket. Great-looking women's clothes, tops, bottoms, pants, dresses, Dolce Vita boots. That's right. They're good-looking. My wife's got several pairs of them. I'm telling you, late gentlemen, you want to make your wife, your girlfriend, great Christmas present, anybody, get out to Hewlett and Dunn on the Historic Square in Collierville, Tennessee, hewlettandunn.com. Proud to be associated with them and have them as a sponsor. Yancy and Bo, great stuff. I love the feedback, whether we agree or disagree, that the top 4 teams, don't y'all think next year what's going to be really fun? The top 4 teams will be vying to get a bye in the first round. And 5 through 8, won't they be trying to get a home field advantage? I mean, somebody, as you know, Lucy would say, you got to explain this to me, Lucy. Somebody explain it to us. Bo, Yancy.
And the third, I was going to say the third, in the team that's the 13th. Remember the Final Four, the last one out or the last one in.
Yeah.
Yancy, you know it for sure. There's going to be a number 13 team there, like SMU or Tulane or something that's going to say, "Hey, we got Rob." You know,
yeah, Yancy, talk about that one.
It leads to great discussion.
Well, I mean, they're going to have a G5 team in there, and if they're one of the top 12 teams in the country, then they deserve to be in there. I do not think they should be left out, but the playoff committee, the top 12 teams should be the top 12 that are in the playoffs. You get your 6 or your 5 Power 5 conference winners, and then you should have 7, not 6, at large berths, and that should be on your ranking. It should not be on anything else. There should not be any politics. It should go straight off of what you're ranked.
Yeah. Yeah, and bottom line is they're humans, and so, you know, opinions matter no matter what we say. I guess the computer is the only way to be completely neutral, but who's writing the program and feeding that computer? That stuff matters. Catch Yancy Porter, folks, Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis and Super Talk, Mississippi. Bo Carter, great work. National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America, great author, also teaches journalism, folks. Hey, Yancy and Bo, one thing both these guys do, they do their homework. It takes, as one of our guests said, you got to have three sources before you can release something. And they better not know one another. Is that fair to say, guys? Yancy, independently confirmed?
Yes, sir.
Don't forget Mr. Anonymous too, Yancy.
Yeah, Mr.
A source close to the situation.
I love Mr. Yeah, John T. Anonymous III.
That's right.
All right. Hey, man, great show. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Christmas is great. You know, you can go indulge yourself and get all kind of stuff. Think about other people who could use some help. Go do some kind work. You don't need to get recognition. You don't need to be putting yourself all out there. Look what I did for people. God knows what you did, because you know what? We all know some people that need help. Go make a positive difference every day. As Yancy always says, have a blessed day, my friend. And also I want to say to all of y'all have a blessed day. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah if that's what you're doing. But we appreciate everybody that watches and listens to this show and all of our sponsors. Until then, have a great day. Make it happen. We are out of here.